I was talking about how the great red dragon has 7 heads and 10 horns. And it's almost as if the apocalypse is telling us that in the very next chapter it's morphing into the beast coming up out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. Here's an article that appeared in Pravda. Pravda was the journal of the Soviet Union, and now it's a Russian newspaper. Okay? And it says in this headline, 20 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the EU, the European Union, is a reincarnation of the former Soviet Union. Okay? And it says that the EU is becoming and has become a unified monster state which resembles the Soviet Union because it contains more than 500 million inhabitants, and a commission determines essentially what the inhabitants of this monster state can do. And so it labels the European Union as a reincarnation of the former Soviet Union. And as we covered, the former Soviet Union, the Red Empire, was the Great Red Dragon. And the apocalypse has the Great Red Dragon essentially morphing into the beast out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. And they think that the European Union very much resembles the Soviet Union, or almost has replaced the Soviet Union. Now here is a map illustrating the expanse or the reach of the European Union. It is the new European Empire. It is the new Roman Empire. It encompasses essentially the same general territory. Here again is the picture of the Roman Empire and its reach and territory at its greatest extent. Here's the EU. It's almost as if it is the revived Roman Empire. And that's what I believe it is. Now there's much more to be said about this. And what's very interesting about this is that in Daniel 7:2, when he's describing the beasts which he sees, he says, quote, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, end quote. Well, the great sea he's referring to here is the Mediterranean Sea. And as we see in these maps, the Roman Empire surrounded the Mediterranean Sea. That's the Mediterranean Sea. And its empire basically encompassed that whole area and territory. The EU, the European Union, the new Roman Empire, if you will, also encompasses that area on the Great Sea. And we see the beast coming up out of the sea. Now, St. John was writing the Apocalypse and seeing this vision on the island of Patmos in the Mediterranean Sea. And indeed, the Apocalypse itself was addressed to the 7 churches of Asia, which at that time were part of the Roman Empire on the Great Sea. And so it would make sense that if he were caught up in a vision and almost taken above the area and shown what is occurring, and he sees this empire arising out of the Mediterranean, that he would see a beast or an empire on the Mediterranean, which was, and then he would see another one, which arises in the same area. And so what he describes and what we're saying fits precisely with such a vision. Now, there's much, much more. In Apocalypse chapter 17, we learn a lot more about the beast which came up out of the sea, or is about to come up out of the sea. In Apocalypse 17 verse 8, we read that, quote, the beast which thou sawest, and he's referring to the beast which came up out of the sea, was and is not, and shall come up out of the bottomless pit and go into destruction. And the inhabitants on the earth, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, shall wonder, seeing the beast that was and is not. End quote. So St. John is told that the beast which he sees, the beast coming up out of the sea, it hasn't yet arisen, as we'll see. And it says that the beast was, but is not. Well, what that's referring to is that the Roman Empire, the beast was in existence, but then it died, and the church took over the Roman Empire, and it became the Holy Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire beast, which persecuted the church, killed the saints, martyred countless Catholics, that beast ceased to be. And so the beast which was is not, and yet shall come up again. That is telling us that the beast of the sea, from the sea, will be a revived kind of Roman Empire. It will not be the Roman Empire, but it will be similar to it. It will encompass essentially the same territory. It will be a new evil type of Roman Empire. Now, when did the EU come into existence? And before I get to that, I have to emphasize the significance of this point, which is that Christendom, was essentially defined by Catholic Europe, the Holy Roman Empire. That's how the faith spread. That's how Catholic society flourished. That's when saints flourished. That's what represented the reign of Christ in kingdoms, peoples, and nations. And in fact, it was from Europe that the missionaries traveled to convert the rest of the world. And so the conquering, the spiritual conquest of the pagan Roman Empire and the transformation of it into the Catholic Holy Roman Empire and Catholic Europe was essentially what defined Christian civilization and Christian history. And so this saga describing the beast which was returning to a new godless Europe, a new godless Roman Empire, cannot be underestimated in terms of its significance. It is essentially the new order, the new anti-Christian order.